Good Thursday evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls, and we have some interesting topics to tell you about tonight. First and foremost, we're going to be touching on the meteor fireball that was viewed over the southeastern U.S. If you haven't already, we're going to show you video of that. That's very cool. And then also, we've had several questions coming in about why are we always talking about the heat index? What does it matter? The temperature is the temperature, but I'm going to break down on why we actually talk about the heat index and why it's important when we're preparing ourselves and our bodies for the heat. And then finally, we're going to be touching on the tropics because it does look like we could potentially have another named storm in the eastern Pacific by the end of the weekend, which could bring us to Tropical Storm Flossie. But first, before we get to all of that stuff, we have to talk about the storms that are ongoing because we have strong to severe thunderstorms across portions of the area this evening. If we zoom things into Lake County, Illinois, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that's going to remain in effect until 8:15 p.m. We have torrential downpours with this. Some small hail is possible, but the biggest issue with this particular storm is the wind gusts. So this particular storm has had a history of producing 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. Once you hit 58 miles per hour, that's when you officially have a severe thunderstorm, and that's what we've been warned for across the portions of northern and central Lake County. Again, torrential downpours. This is going to move off toward the north and the east. It's cruising at about 25 to 30 miles per hour. So for those of you in Lake County that are experiencing all of the thunder, the lightning, the heavy rain, and the high winds, this is likely going to pass your region in the next 20 minutes or so. And again, that warning, that's going to be lasting through about 8:15. But that's not the only location that's been seeing some of these stronger storms. Bouncing down to northwest Indiana in portions of Lake County, we have a pretty strong thunderstorm at this point. Previously, leading right up to 8 p.m., we did have a special weather statement that was in effect for Lake County and portions of Porter County for 50 mile per hour wind gusts. We've seen some slight weakening with this particular storm cell moving through, but nonetheless, it is still strong. We're likely seeing 40, maybe 45 mile per hour wind gusts. And I did just notice as I was chatting about this over in LaPorte County, we do have a new special weather statement that's now going to remain in effect until 8:45. That too is going to be for small hail in addition to 50 mile per hour wind gusts with that cell that's near Kingsbury. This is going to be moving northeasterly, likely right around 30 to 35 miles per hour. So for those of you in Hamlet, if you are on the east side of LaPorte, for those of you also in Rolling Prairie, you're going to be seeing this cell moving over your location likely in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. And again, torrential downpours as well as frequent lightning going to be accompanying that storm. Let's zoom things out and get a check of some of our power outages, because as that storm that I was just showing you up in Lake County, when it was originally developing and becoming strong to severe over in Kane County, we actually had several reports of wind damage because of 55 to 60 mile per hour winds. So we do have sporadic power outages across the region this evening. For those of you that are in Kane County, we have about 100 outages there, 600 in Cook County. And then in Lake County now we're up to around 100. That's Lake County, Indiana. We so far have not seen any power outages coming in from that severe thunderstorm that's currently moving through Lake County, Illinois. Now, the storm reports that have come in so far, a lot of this has been for some tree damage, tree branches down. We've had trees on power lines in portions of Kane County. So nothing major at this point that we're seeing coming in, but nonetheless, again, there's a few folks that are going to be without power likely throughout the evening. Now, let's get to something that's pretty interesting, I think, for a lot of people. You've probably seen the headlines of a fireball flying through the sky. This was seen in portions of Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And essentially what we're seeing here, this is a meteor. But in order to understand exactly what this is, it's going through the sky here, first we have to break down what is a meteor in the first place. So take a look at this graphic here that I've put together. A meteoroid, that's a small space rock. Think something like a little pebble or even some dust that's entering into our atmosphere. Once it enters into our atmosphere, it likely begins to burn up. And as that happens, it creates that streak that we associate, think shooting stars or meteors. That's what we were seeing. So whether it was a speck of dust, whether it was a rock that was coming into our atmosphere, this became a meteor because it was burning up. And now, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen any confirmation that there's actually been anything found on the ground, although there were over 140 reports between Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and into Tennessee of people seeing this. But there were also several calls of people's homes shaking in Georgia. So that could have been potentially when this was breaking the sound barrier. So a lot of interesting things were really taking place across the southeastern U.S. today, all because of this meteor. But as far as I've seen, I don't think that a meteorite has actually been found associated with that meteor. And a meteorite would be if you were to find a rock or something that has been confirmed to have fallen from that meteor if it actually makes it to the Earth's surface. But so far, I haven't seen any reports of that. But nonetheless, a really cool video that we were seeing across the southeastern U.S. today. Now let's talk about the heat. This has been a reoccurring story really all week since this past weekend. We've been telling you all about this heat dome that's over the eastern half of the U.S. and you can see it again today. What I want you to take notice of is all of those darker shades of orange and red that we have showing up on this map. For a lot of us, that's representing temperatures that have been topping out in the 90s. But the difference with this map today than what we were seeing yesterday is we're starting to see cooler air across the northern half of the Great Lakes region. So places like northern Wisconsin, portions of Minnesota, the UP of Michigan, the northern lower of Michigan, over toward the New England states. We're starting to see some of that cooler air moving in, and that's because our ridge is beginning to kind of get cut down a little bit. So it's not going to be quite as amplified here over the next couple of days. But this is a look ahead. This is a snapshot of what today looked like. We had that strong high pressure system that was overhead across the eastern U.S. But notice as I advance this into your day tomorrow, do you see how that ridge, the jet stream, it's not really as amplified anymore. So we're starting to return to a more seasonal average of where we would typically see the weather pattern and the jet stream placing itself. So by Saturday of this coming weekend, a lot of us are going to be experiencing a fairly normal summer weekend for the region. And even here at home, we're going to be experiencing that at least on Saturday. But on Sunday, we are going to have a brief little warm up. So let's talk a little bit about the heat index, because I've had a lot of folks writing me on social media asking me, why are we talking about the heat index so much? And why is that important when you can just see what the temperature is? You know how to dress when it's that certain temperature. But what it comes down to is what that feels like to our body, how our body cools itself down. So think of a 90-degree day. You're going to be hot anyway if you're out, whether it's low humidity or high humidity. Either way, when we're in the 90s, you're likely going to step outside and your body's going to start sweating because it's trying to cool itself down. Now, when you have low humidity, when you sweat, we have evaporation. That's what's cooling us down, is when our sweat evaporates. And when there's low humidity, that happens fairly easily. When you have high humidity, that's not really how it works anymore, because it takes longer for your sweat to evaporate off your body, which means your body can't cool itself down as quickly. So therefore, it feels even hotter to us. So whenever you hear us talking about the heat index, it's because we're talking about high humidity in addition to some very warm temperatures. So our bodies are going to react differently to if it's 95 degrees with low humidity versus 95 degrees and high humidity. Our bodies are really going to struggle to cool down when those dew points and the humidity is a little bit higher. And speaking of dew points, by the way, a lot of people are confused by that as well. So one thing that you can take away, if ever you see a dew point temperature on a map that is higher than about 65 degrees, just know that it feels sticky and just kind of uncomfortable outside. If dew points are below 65, you don't really notice the humidity all that much. However, the last couple of days, just to kind of put those numbers in perspective for you, we've had dew point temps that have been in the 70s. Whenever dew points are in the 70s, that's when it almost feels like you just can't cool down. Your skin gets sticky. It's just uncomfortable. That's why we've been talking about the heat index so much. Your high temperatures today here locally, 94 degrees at O'Hare. We hit 95 at the Chicago lakefront, 97 in Gary. That was one of our warmer spots, and we actually made it to 92 degrees in Waukegan. But then during the afternoon, at least in Lake County, Illinois, we did have that northeasterly wind that was coming in. So it actually brought temperatures down from the 90s in places like Waukegan during the afternoon into the 70s. Now looking ahead, the next couple of days look pretty decent. We're going to be in the mid to upper 80s, and the big thing that you're going to notice is that the humidity on Friday and Saturday, it's not going to be nearly as high. So it's going to actually feel like we're in the mid to upper 80s. It should be much more comfortable Friday and Saturday. Sunday, we're kind of getting back to this really hot weather pattern. Just for a day, though, we're going to be at 93 degrees. We're going to have high humidity. So, of course, we're going to be talking about those heat indices likely being in the triple digits again on Sunday before we really begin to drop back down into the 80s, which, by the way, That's what's considered to be average. Your average high for this time of the year is right around 83. Now, coming up right after this short break, we're going to be talking about the tropics. So we have another system that we're going to start to track in the eastern Pacific. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back. Before we start talking about the tropics and the eastern Pacific, we do have another severe thunderstorm warning to let you know about for those of you that are here locally in the Chicagoland area. There is now a severe thunderstorm warning that's remaining in effect until 9 p.m. for eastern Lake County and then going into Porter County. Again, this is until 9 p.m. now for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, small hail being possible, in addition to lightning and torrential downpours. So for those of you in places like the east side of Merrillville, heading over toward Porter, you are included now in this warning. And again, that's going to go until 9, jumping up to Lake County just very briefly. The worst of the storm is really beginning to move out toward the lake now, so it's going to be offshore likely in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But we do have that severe thunderstorm warning for Lake County also remaining in effect until about 8:15. All right, let's bounce down, talk about the tropics now. So in the eastern Pacific, we've already had Alvin, Barbara, Cosme, Delilah, Eric, and now potentially looking forward to tropical storm Flossie going into the end of this upcoming weekend. So the tropical cyclone development map that you're looking at here, this is showing expected development in the next 2 days. So in the eastern Pacific, you can see that orange shaded area. There's a 50% chance of seeing this develop in the next 2 days. We have a 10% chance actually in the Gulf over for the Atlantic season there, but that's only a 10% chance. So the chance of that actually developing into a tropical depression or a tropical storm does appear to be very low in the next 2 days. Even the next 7 days, notice in the Atlantic, it's only about a 20% chance. However, in the eastern Pacific, we have a 90% chance of seeing this develop into either a tropical depression or a tropical storm. And once again, if it does become a tropical storm in the eastern Pacific, this will likely take on the name Flossie by the end of this upcoming weekend. Here at home, 75 degrees is going to be the overnight low, so it's going to remain warm. It's going to remain muggy. Going into your day tomorrow, we'll have spotty showers and thunderstorms being possible. And your temperatures, they're not going to be quite as hot as what we were today. So we're expected to be in the mid 80s. The humidity, that's going to be a little bit lower tomorrow as well. If you're hoping for that weekend forecast, I will show you that coming up very soon on the news at 9 p.m. We'll see you soon.